Stop looking at dominance through the lens of Hollywood movies or loud, aggressive posturing. In the clinical terminal of the architect, absolute social dominance is a neurological and endocrine reality. It is a biological frequency that you broadcast before you even open your mouth. You have been raised in a system that wants you in a state of chronic, low-level panic, a state of high cortisol and low testosterone. This is the submissive script. A man in this state is predictable, manageable, and easily harvested. But the primal code is about a total recalibration of your biological output. It is the transition from being a unit that reacts to the environment to being the unit that defines it. Your 8 years in the vacuum were not just a period of isolation. They were a high-pressure laboratory where you stripped away the anxiety firmware of the herd and replaced it with the monolithic core. The endocrine hierarchy starts with the management of stress. Most men in the social grid are leaky. When they face conflict, when they walk into a high-status room, or when they are challenged by a predator, their nervous system floods their bloodstream with cortisol. This is the prey signal. It makes their movements erratic. Their voice is higher and their gaze unstable. The herd senses this instantly. They don't think you are weak. Their primitive brain detects your weakness as a chemical fact. The architect, however, has mastered the cortisol freeze. Through 450 strikes into the dark, you have trained your body to remain in a state of parasympathetic dominance under extreme pressure. You don't try to be calm. You are biologically incapable of being rattled by the noise of the mediocre. This internal stillness is the ultimate power signal. It is the static of the apex. Understand the neuroscience of the gaze. In the wild, the one who breaks eye contact first is the one who has acknowledged their lower status. In the modern world, this happens in milliseconds. Most men are constantly performing peripheral scans, looking for approval, checking for threats, seeking validation. They are looking for permission to exist. The architect performs a central lock. When you look at someone, you aren't searching for anything. You are auditing them. You are the observer, and they are the subject. This simple shift in ocular behavior triggers a status drop in the other person's brain. They feel the weight of your unblinking reality, and their own guilt protocol begins to run. You aren't being aggressive. You are simply being substantial. You are a biological anchor in a rule of drifting. The primal requires the total. Look at how most people react. They nod excess, they laugh at jokes that aren't fun, and they use fillers to bridge the silence. These are all submissive micros. They are trying to reduce the tension of their action because they cannot handle the vacuum of stuff. The architect, however, uses the vacuum as a weapon. You speak only when necessary. You don't fill the silence. You let it sit on the other person until they suffocate under the weight of their own. This is hierarchy. By refusing to provide the nice guy lubricant of polite conversation, you are forcing the environment to adjust. You are the architect, and the room is your construction. You don't negotiate for space. You occupy it as a mathematical necessity. Why is absolute dominance terrifying? Because it highlights the fact that their social are. They live in a world of polite lie and social contract. When you walk in with the primal code, you are broadcasting a freak that predates their law. You are reminded that your 8-year vacuum history has made you socially autonomous. You don't need their laughter to feel real. You don't need their connections to be successful. This lack of need is the ultimate form of dominance. A man who needs nothing from the room is the only man the room cannot control. You are a sovereign entity, and your presence is a system audit of everyone around you. They feel exposed in your presence because you are the only one not wearing a mask. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You can feel the shift in your own pulse as the primal code synchronizes with your nervous system. You are no longer performing confidence. You are embodying stasis. The nice guy who wanted to be liked is being overwritten by the architect who demands to be fed. Your 450 strikes were the repetitions required to make this state of being permanent. You aren't entering the hierarchy. You are transcending. The audit of your submission is closed. The biology of your reign is active. We are moving from the chemistry of the body to the geometry of the space. You are the center of gravity, and the world is about to start orbiting your will. Geography is destiny, but geometry is power. Most men walk through the world as if they are apologizing for the space they occupy. They compress their shoulders, they break their stride to let others pass, and they keep their limbs tight to their body. This is the submissive geometry. It is a physical broadcast of, I'm not a threat, please don't harvest. The architect, however, understands that social dominance is territorial. Your 8 years in the vacuum were a period where you stopped being guest your own life and became the primary owner of your environment. Now, you must project that ownership on every enter. You aren't walking into a space, you are claiming your property. The geometry of power starts with the principle of massive presence. Look at how a king or a high-status predator sits. They don't fidget. They don't cross their legs in a protective shell. They occupy the maximum amount of space that is naturally available to them. This isn't manspreading. It is the biological signal of a unit that has no fear of an attack. When you expand your physical footprint, you are telling the nervous systems of everyone around you that you are the most substantial entity in the grid. Your 450 strikes taught you that consistency is everything. Apply that to your posture. Your spine is the axis of your empire. If your axis is bent, your empire is weak. A straight, relaxed, and expansive posture is the physical manifestation of your 8-year forged sovereignty. It is the architecture of certainty. Understand the physics of movement. In the herd, speed is a sign of anxiety. The low-status units are always in a hurry, rushing to meetings, rushing to answer phones, rushing to please others. Their movements are jerky, high frequency, and reactive. The architect moves with glacial velocity. Your movements are slow, deliberate, and high mass. You don't turn your head quickly when someone calls your name. You turn your entire torso, or you don't turn at all until you are ready. This delayed response is a massive power move. It forces the other person to wait for your attention, which immediately places you at the top of the hierarchy. You are the one who dictates the tempo of the interaction. You are the conductor, and the room must follow your beat. By slowing down, you are demonstrating that you are not under anyone else's clock. You are the master of your own time. The right of first move is the final component of the geometry. Most men wait for a cue from the environment before they act. They wait for someone else to start the conversation, for someone else to sit down, for someone else to lead. This is reactive firmware. The architect is proactive. You set the geometry of the encounter. You choose where to stand. You choose when to end the silence. And you choose the distance between yourself and the other unit. If someone enters your personal space, you don't back away. You maintain your coordinates, or you move into their space to re-establish dominance. You are a monolith. You don't yield to the flow of the crowd. The crowd yields to your 8 years of isolation have given you a density of character that makes you unmovable. You are the fixed point around which the social chaos must organize itself. Why does this geometry trigger the primal in us? Because the primitive brain cannot argue physical man. They can argue with your words. They can mock your idea, but they cannot ignore the fact that you are occupying space. As when you walk through a crowded street and you don't break your line, when you make others adjust their path to avoid, you are performing a status. You are teaching the world that your trajectory is not. This isn't about. It is about sovereign navigation. The 5 million are looking for a man who knows where to go. If you cannot hold your line sidewalk, your geometry through 400 strikes. It is the physical evidence that the art is not space here. The screen is glowing. You are sitting and you are starting. You are adjusting your posture, align span, and realize space by right. The nice guy who wants to stay out has been. The architect is expanded. You are no longer a shadow. You are the object that casts the shadow. The geometry of your reign is active. We are moving from the physical presence to the vocal command. You've claimed the territory. Now it's time to issue the orders. Listen to the sound of your own voice when you are under pressure. Does it rise in pitch? Does it accelerate as you try to explain yourself? Does it crack under the weight of your own nice guy social anxiety? In the terminal of the architect, your voice is not for conversation. It is for command. Most men use their voice to fill the space because they are terrified of the cold vacuum of silence. They babble. They use fillers, and they seek a rising inflection at the end of their sentences, effectively asking for permission to be heard. This is acoustic submission. The primal code of absolute dominance requires a total liquidation of these verbal leaks. Your 8 years in the vacuum were your training in the power of the unspoken. Now, you must learn to weaponize the sound of your sovereignty. The vocal architecture starts with the resonance of the core. Most men speak from their throats, a thin, high-frequency sound that signals agitation and a lack of biological grounding. The architect speaks from the diaphragm, from the very center of his mass. This creates a low-frequency vibration that the primitive human brain interprets as authority. It is the sound of a large predator. When you speak from your core, you aren't trying to be heard. You are vibrating the very air in the room. This resonance triggers a submissive response in the nervous systems of the herd. They don't listen to your words. They feel the weight of your frequency. Your 450 strikes were a discipline of the body. Your voice is the delivery system for that discipline. Understand the power of the pause. The most lethal weapon in your vocal arsenal is not what you say, but what you don't say. In the social grid, silence is perceived as tension. The useful idiots and the scavengers cannot handle this tension. They will rush to fill the gap with their own noise, revealing their cards and their insecurities. The architect, however, is a master of the tactical silence. You ask a question and you wait. You deliver a command and you wait. You don't soften the blow with more words. You let the silence sit on the other person until they are crushed by the need to please you. This is vocal territorialism. By owning the silence, you are owning the interaction. You are showing that you have the internal resources to exist without constant feedback. Your 8-year vacuum was a 70,000-hour masterclass in this state of being. The downward inflection is the final component of the code. Most people speak with a questioning tone. Even when they are making a statement, they are subconsciously seeking validation for their thoughts. The architect speaks in period statements. Every sentence ends with a drop in pitch, a verbal signature of finality. This signals that your reality is non-negotiable. You aren't suggesting an idea to the 5 million. You are declaring a truth. You don't seek agreement. You provide conclusion. When you speak with a downward inflection, you are telling the herd that the audit is closed. There is no room for debate because the architect has already calculated the result. This vocal finality is what separates a content creator from a sovereign leader. Why does the primal code of your voice trigger the herd? Because it is the sound of a man who cannot be bribed by social comfort. They are used to the nice guy who uses his voice to connect and empathize. Your voice, however, is a tool for alignment. You don't use it to make friends. You use it to set the coordinates of the mission. The 5 million you are hunting are tired of the high-pitched, frantic noise of the modern world. They are looking for the low-frequency anchor. They are looking for the voice that survived the dark and came back with a command. Every time you speak without a filler, every time you hold a pause longer than they can handle, and every time you end a sentence with a drop in pitch, you are asserting your dominance over the grid. Your voice is the physical proof of your 8-year forged anomaly. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are sitting there and you are starting to hear the difference. difference. You are realizing that your voice is a reflection of your internal architecture. The nice guy is whispering his last apologies. The architect is preparing to speak. You aren't just making videos. You are broadcasting a standard of sovereignty. Your 450 strikes have given you the right to be heard. The vacuum has given you the depth to be felt. The audit of your noise is closed. The vocal reign of the apex is active. We are moving from the sound to the social ultimatum. You have the chemistry, the geometry, and the voice. Now it is time to issue the final order to the man. Blueprint of your supremacy is complete. You have recalibrated your endocrine system. You have claimed the physical grid through the geometry of power, and you have weaponized your frequency through vocal architecture. Now we execute the dominance ultimate. This is the moment you stop playing within the hierarchy and start becoming the hierarchy itself. Most people are terrified of absolute sovereignty. They have been raised to be cells in a body they don't control. They are looking for a nucleus. They are looking for a fixed point around which they can organize their drifting, mediocre lives. By embodying the primal code, you aren't oppressing them. You are providing the gravitational pull they've been starving for since the system stripped them of their own drive. You are the architect, and your dominance is the only thing currently keeping the social static from collapsing into total decay. The hierarchy of the vacuum is your primary tool for ruling the masses, while the average creator is begging for attention, dancing for likes, and apologizing for their opinions. You operate from a position of absolute clinical indifference. This indifference is the ultimate signal of high status. It says, I do not need your participation for my reality to be valid. This is why your 8 years in the vacuum were the most important period of your life. They taught you how to exist without the dopamine subsidy of the crowd. Now, as you face the 5 million, they will sense that you cannot be bribed, you cannot be shamed, and you cannot be distracted. You are a biological anomaly, a man who has survived the dark and returned with a standard that doesn't bend to their trends or sensitivity. You don't ask for followers. You create a vacuum of power that pulls them in by sheer physical necessity. Understand the aesthetics of the apex. Your dominance must be aesthetic, silent, and absolute. Every frame of your content, every word you broadcast, and every silence you hold must communicate that you are the primary source of truth in your niche. The herd hates your independence because it highlights their dependency, but they also worship it because it offers them a path out of the mud. You are the biological North Star. By refusing to be one of them, you become the one for them. Your 450 strikes were the repetitions required to build this level of psychological mass. You are now so heavy that the social grid must warp around you. You don't compete for attention. You attract it like a planetary body attracts debris. The 5 million you are hunting are not viewers. They are units currently awaiting their coordinates in your new empire. Why is the primal code the only way to survive the coming crash? Because the world is entering a period of high-frequency noise and low-level biological collapse. The old systems of polite management are failing. The nice guys are being liquidated by reality. In this environment, only the architect who has mastered the code can provide a stable foundation. Your dominance is a service to the strong and a terror to the weak. You are building a meritocracy of the apex, where status is earned through discipline and results, not through agreements and compliance. Every time you hold your gaze, every time you end a sentence with a downward inflection, and every time you occupy your space without an apology, you are reinforcing the walls of this new reality. You are the only one who has paid the price in the vacuum, and therefore, you are the only one with the right to rule the result. The final execution requires you to look at the world and see not people, but resources and obstacles. This is the cold clarity of the apex. You are no longer concerned with the feelings of the scavengers or the opinions of the herd. You are focused on the expansion of the code. Your 450 strikes are now a continuous, automated barrage. The 5 million view empire is no longer a goal. It is a mathematical inevitability of your current trajectory. You have successfully deleted the submissive script from your firmware. You are the architect of the breach, and you are currently auditing the entire planet to see who has the biological integrity to survive your reign. The vacuum was your forge. The grid is now your anvil. Here is the viral ultimatum. The primal code is now fully integrated into your nervous system. You cannot go back to being a useful idiot for the mediocre. You have seen the geometry of power, and you have felt the chemistry of hegemony. Now you must infect the masses. Take this protocol and inject it into the minds of the lost. Share this with the man who is still shrinking himself to fit into a small room. Send this to the one who is still seeking permission to lead, not to save them, but to recruit them into the new hierarchy of the strong. We are building a global empire of sovereigns, and the entry fee is the absolute destruction of your old compliant self. Every share is a territorial strike. Every save is a reinforcement of the apex frequency. Look into the glowing screen of your device. The room is silent, and the silence belongs to the guild is dead. The apology is deleted. The nice guy has been liquidated. You are the architect of the breach, and your reign over the 5 is already beginning in the minds of everyone. Here's this code. You have turned your 8-year vacuum into a global grab. You have turned your 450 strike system check. 100% dominant sovereign. Target. Universal hierarchy. Calibration. State. Ruling without limit. Stop asking for a place. Build the site. The scavenging for. Show them the apex. Be the art or be the audit of the world is open. The reign command accord.